We heard from a friend recently who's having issues with her 930 Brother machine mispatterning, but only doing so in KC1. So this video is an exploration of the KC1 function to help her and others with the same problem pinpoint the issue and correct it. I will turn you over to Jack now.
All right, we are now turning it over to make sure we're in KC2. And here is my needle path. I'm coming down here, there I go. And I'm up through here, I'm over to here. I must go down, I must flip. Now when I get to here.
Jack is a needle butt, by the way.
This is the needle butt.
Oh, right.
But I'm pretending to be one. When I get to here on this side, normally it's going to jump over to here. But notice in KC2, this is loose. Okay, and this...
Is it supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But now the alternative is to come down off the hump and go out this way. Now you see that the needle butt position, it's coming in over here, and I'm now going left to right. So this is scooping up the needles. They're coming through here, they're going through there. I'll go through it again. Here they come, up here. Now, if they go this way, look where they come out. They're coming out here where they came in here on the other side. So the problem is the carriage works fine from right to left. So that means that's with the needle butts coming in right here. And again, in KC2, this is loose. Let me show you the difference. This is KC1.
Okay.
This has now become rigid. It will not flex. My suspicion is something to do with the flexibility of these scoopers and their corresponding path directions. This is working fine with them in a flexible position. If we go to KC1, they become rigid. And if they don't become rigid, there's no change in the carry. Let's do this on the camera. 2, 1. 2, 1. Now you'll notice that the belt engagement bounces between the two. See it right where my thumb is? It bounces slightly. So that means this might need some lubrication right in here, right in here. All right, 2, this is flexible. 1, this is still flexible. So the only change is the lack of flexibility in the scoop ends and the directing end of these. So if it works in 2, where these are loose, possibly they're not responding to the key to move into a rigid position. See, when they're loose...
So when she rotates the dial to KC1, the dial is going, but this stuff isn't getting the message.
That's it. See, notice there's distance in here in KC2. KC1, it's in a rigid position, but it needs to be up against this fixed spot, so that the needle butt only has one way to go when it comes in.
Now, since she said it knits okay going one direction, when she flips it over and rotates the dial to KC1, she should see a better response on one side than the other.
Exactly. If it's not knitting correctly, left to right, going this way, that means this one is not responding correctly. Let's see. Is that right? We're going left to right, so the needles are coming in on this side. So she should look for this not to remain loose when she goes to KC1.
But some of the needles, a few are selecting, which makes me think it's not totally failing, but it's not staying where it ought to be either.
Right. Now, there's a number of things also. Is this flipper fast enough? Is this fast enough? Is that responding the same in both directions? Is this flipper fast enough?
And those would all be cleaning and lubricating issues, right?
That's right. Get yourself a can of LPS food grade silicone and go to spraying like crazy, and you'll free all these things up. See, that should be flexible.
And if one of them fails to respond well enough to the LPS, you usually use Croil. Is that what you would suggest?
Yes. In other words, this has to be loose on both sides. If you'll notice, this flipper is responding around that shaft. If there's any corrosion on that shaft length, that flipper will come out and slowly go back, but it won't go back fast enough. The first needle butt through is fine. The next one, it's not in its spot. See, now coming this way from this position, which is closer to the needle butt position, closer to the back of the bed. See, it comes through this way. If this is open and not closing back, what does it have to do? It has to come this way, which means it's not going to pattern. It's got to come this way if it's going to pattern correctly.
Are there any springs that could be broken, missing, or overstretched that would cause the issue also?
Tell you what we'll do. I'll go ahead and take this carriage cover off, put the knob back on, and show you what's taking place under there so you can look for it. All right, cover is off. If you don't know how to get this cover off, we have multiple brother videos showing you how to get the handle and the stitch dial and the 2 screws from underneath off of there. We're now in NL. If you can look over here and see the little red indicator here. Now we're going to KC1, and notice this rail is what's actually doing the work. KC1. If you'll notice, see our dial has teeth on it, and it's walking this rail. KC2. Now, watch this. KC1, see where this piece is? This is rigid because it's held into this track, and it does that on both sides. This side's easiest to see. KC2. Oh, it's been released. Now it'll flex. There's its spring right underneath there. Again, it's easier to see on this side. And you may not be able to see it in the picture, but that's actually 2 springs. One little one inside of a big one. But if that's not working right on either side, and here I'm going to flex it on this side, I'm going to be a needle butt again. I'm going to flex it on this side. You can see the 2 springs here. So if it's not doing that, what's going to happen when we go to KC1, this is coming into the rigid position.
Could you point with your tool, because your hand's hard to see through?
All right, KC1, this is the control post for this scoop. 2, it's flexible. 1, it is not. And you'll notice at the top of the rail here, I'll rotate it just a little bit, see if I can get the light better. But at the top of the rail, there's 2 distinct positions. And again, they're declivities, making an upper lip looking situation. So you've got spring action here also. They should be the same until you go to NL or CR. That's where they change. So between KC2 and KC1, that is your major difference. And this is the bounce in the engagement of the belt drive. See, it bounces between the 2, and that bounce is taking place right in here. That's the bounce. Now see, if we go to NL, there's no belt drive available. So this that I was describing earlier, that is the bounce. See, it comes in and goes right back out. You need to make sure that is occurring between those two settings.
Oh, right, because if the belt doesn't give the information to the needles, they don't know what to do.
Exactly. Well, the selector plates are driven by the belt, and if the selector plate doesn't move in time to catch the needle coming across, then the needle butt's not going to be in the right position to be read, quote unquote, by the carriage.
What he said.
Right.
You did express it better.
But this is what you're looking for. This is 1 and 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. Look for the action along this rail and make sure that it is moving according to the rail position. And you see now with the cover off, you can see where you would have to spray some silicone inside here to get that to work.
So to review, what springs, if missing or damaged, could affect the matter?
This spring package here. It looks like one spring, but it's actually a spring inside of a spring. So it's a doubled spring.
Usually when we have found a missing spring, it wasn't truly missing, it was rattling around inside the carriage.
Right. This end is pretty much fixed, but if you'll notice, when I'm doing this, I'm moving around the post that holds that spring butt right there. This is the butt of the spring, and this is the action end of the spring, because that's what's being flexed, is the distance of the spring this way. So it can come loose here, especially if, and I will just say this for information, if this screw was loosened trying to adjust something and you didn't know what you were doing, that screw right there is the spring retainer. So if you back that screw down far enough, the spring will jump right off.
And a lot of our friends don't have any way of knowing if anybody's tried that. We all buy these things secondhand, hoping for the best, and you don't know what the last people did.
You do not. And of course, if somebody loosened that screw and saw that it did nothing, here's a better view on this end. That's the screw. This is the spring butt. And I will try to get it to ride up some. See how far it'll ride up? It won't come off the cover. It won't come that high, but it'll come as far as the cover base. And so if this has risen up a little, somebody loosened that screw a little bit thinking that this needed replacing or adjusting, then that spring could have just popped right off, just like I did. And you just need to go back in and put it back on again.
Well, that would be easy.
Easy peasy.
Let's hope our friend has a simple solution.
It can also come off on that end. You see me flexing it by pushing on. It's just a loop around a post. And that, you see, I'm moving it so it could pop off. If this was in the wrong position or handled roughly while the dial was being dialed, then it is possible. There it is. When we put it in CR, you can very clearly see here's the action end of the spring, and there's its control flipper. This can stick. See, I can flex it sometimes and sometimes not. That can stick. See, there it goes, a long flex. Now, not so much. So this can move and not be flexible, and therefore this won't be able to make this respond. See, there it is, it's stuck.
Oh.
If I push from the very top, see, if I push from the bottom, it won't go but that far. If I push from the top, it goes way over. So this spring can be off of its little groove here. This can need lubricating on either side. We suspect one side because it works one way and not the other way. If it works right to left, this one's right. If it doesn't work left to right, this one's wrong. If we go to NL, this side becomes visible. And again, make sure you turn so the camera can see. Make sure that this has its full movement and that its spring is firmly attached. That gives it a little more light. So in the CR position, this one's exposed to inspect. At the NL position, this one's exposed. Make sure that when you put your knob back on, which it will jump off with the cover gone, that it does correspond to its right position. There you go. 1, 2, CR. CR exposes the left. Normal exposes the right. But now you know what to look for.